Hey YouTube, this is the 9th episode in the Ukrainian mercenary series. It's being done in conjunction with the other podcasts, the websites, books, social media, and so much more for Ashley Westeisen, the young, wonderful, beautiful South African woman who is still serving a life sentence inside of a Thai prison cell. So if you've not already subscribed, please do. She's the only reason I was in Ukraine and the only reason that I'm making this video now. So, the last video left off after our great success with our first planned assault, which saw us almost killed numerous times, but for whatever inexplicable reason, the fates who hold our threads of destiny decided not to snip them just yet. And so after that boondoggle, we were sent back to the orphanage, where Busch promptly decided that he had had enough of not killing any Russians, and he went home. And so the rest of us were there, continued to live under the alcohol-induced ineptness of our great commander, Jay, as things built to a head, you know? Now, obviously, there's a podcast on this channel about being an international dark web drug trafficker and, of course, living that lifestyle. I am not opposed to having a good time. I'm not opposed to alcohol even, although I think personally there are much better and healthier and more fun options. However, the gentlemen that we were being confined to close quarters with were taking it to an extreme, and we're talking here about Jay, Kenny, and Gary. The drinking had went from being under the table to out in the open, from being moderate to excessive. I mean, like, we're in one wing, so there's an orphanage. We're in an orphanage. We're in an orphanage. Okay, there's no kids there, but we're in an orphanage. There's, like, still drawings with little cartoons, and, you know, we're staying in beds. We're sleeping in beds that before we got there, some little orphan was sleeping in. And the women that are cleaning up behind us, sweeping the floors, mopping the floors after our muddy boots, doing all of our laundry from our sweaty, disgusting clothes, cooking all of our meals 3 times a day, washing our bed, right? Cleaning the bathrooms, unclogging the toilets, right? They're being so loud that you can hear them on the whole other wing of the orphanage. Just these, from how loud and boisterous they are, like it's a frat party. And it's in like the middle of the day on a Tuesday, and we're 15 miles from the front. And we're on call for missions. And these guys, they have guard duty shifts where they're supposed to be out with 2 hours with a weapon fully loaded, patrolling our base, watching for any threats that are mostly from drones or saboteurs. And they're even having fights in the cafeteria. Seriously, Jay and Gary, you know, because Jay, our squad leader, was so drunk he walked into the cafeteria, for some reason thought it would be hilarious to pick up a tomato and smush it onto Gary's head. Okay, and so that's what he did. Walked in, smushed the tomato on Gary's head, and Gary promptly stood up and tackled him onto the floor. And the Ukrainian women are sitting right there. You know, how does that make me look? Okay, first, see, and this is one of the reasons that makes me so upset. Number one, it's very disrespectful, okay, because of where we are and what we're supposed to be doing there. Like, again, I don't care if you want to drink, man. I don't care if you want to have fun, but control yourself. You know what I mean? Like, act right. But then, secondly, the way that their behavior reflects on me, because he's my squad leader. I'm in his squad. And this guy is sitting there. Okay, man, one night, beyond the, you know, what I'm just talking about in the cafeteria, at lunchtime, in the afternoon, man. You know what I mean? It's not even dinner yet, and this guy is so drunk. Anyway, so then another time, this one was closer to nighttime, right? Jay, same, drunk as hell. Turns on, and again, we're in this same room, the whole squad. So there's like 13 beds, 10 are full, whatever, Busch is gone now. And we're all in this little room, okay? And so Jay, now again, drunk off his ass, starts playing terrible techno music. Really loud, really not good beats, and just, it starts like dancing like an old guy would kind of dance, like, in like in the middle of the room that we're all staying in. Like, we're all literally, man, like laying in our beds, okay? Like, it's not far from, you know, getting ready to go to sleep, and this guy is sitting there doing this, you know? I mean, it's just been a pattern that's getting worse and worse and worse. But, you know, why did you might be saying, why didn't you say something? Well, because, remember, I already did twice, right? I was involved in 2 previous, you might call them mutinies, right? Where I tried to tell the squad, hey, this is not who should be in charge. There's other people, JT, who should be in charge, you know, let's do that. And I was rejected, you know, both times, quite strongly. So at that point, you know, I'm just laying in my bed. I'm just, you know, I'm looking around, you know, like, you know, what, don't look at me. Don't look at me, I already said shit, you know. And so finally, JT was the one that had had enough. You know, and he was over there, and his bed is literally the furthest from Jay's. He's on the whole other side of the room, you know, but again, it's not that big of a room. And so finally, JT has enough, and he, you know, he tells Jay, you know, whatever he says, like, turn the music down or something, whatever. And Jay's like, what's the matter? You know, are you sleepy or something? You know, just really not cool. And, you know, JT basically tells him, like, no, you know, the music is super loud, you're right here, you know, this is crazy, either turn the music down or I'm gonna leave, okay? Like, I'm gonna go in another room. And again, you know, Jay totally not reading the room, you know, oh, come on, JT, blah, blah, you know, and Kenny's right up there with him, although Kenny looks more concerned, because this is JT, right? This is like, you know, he's like sort of like Dom in a way, but, you know, Dom is like someone that no one really talks to that much, but they all respect him, whereas JT everyone talks to and respects, you know, because I guess Dom just scares everyone. I talk to Dom, you know, because he's like my battle buddy and stuff, but no one else really talks to Dom. And so anyway, you know, it's JT, and so everyone, even myself, you know, I look over, and we're all watching to see, like, this unfold between JT, who should be our squad leader, and Jay, who should not be our squad leader. And JT just, you know, basically holds his ground, you know, and just like, you know, either turn it down or I'm gone. And so finally, you know, Jay's petulant, he's like, oh, fine, you know, let's go, Kenny. If any of you all want to come and not be with this party pooper, you know, like really, like saying embarrassing things like this, like, and slurring his words, very sloppy, you know, just swaying on his feet, you know, like petulant, you know, like, come over to the dance studio. Come on, Kenny, let's go. And like walks out with his bottled liquor held by his side and his stereo, handheld stereo in the other hand. And then Kenny, like, shame-faced follows like a puppy following a blind person. You know what I mean? Like the dog of a senile person would do. Sort of like embarrassed, but still follows anyway. And, you know, and so, yeah, just like that kind of stuff. And it ended up, what happened was, you know, no one went, right? And so like 5 minutes later, first Kenny came back, and Kenny didn't say anything. He just like laid down on his rack and then pretended to go to sleep. And then like eventually Jay came back all quiet and could try his bottle of liquor and his music off, and he just sat on his bed. Like, it was just, you know, I just lost, really, man. I was losing so much respect for these, you know, for Jay, really, because it's top-down leadership. That's the way he was running it, and that's the way that it was, right? And so what happened, what really would bother me, right, and what made me say something is, man, they would drink, Jay and Kenny especially, right? Gary was like third wheel. They would drink before we woke up. So we're talking like 4:35 in the morning. They were already standing up by like the wooden lockers at the front of the room by Jay and Kenny's bed and they're standing up there by this locker, and that's where they got the bottle and their shots at, and they're just sitting there taking shots, and they're like laughing and chatting and shit, and it's like before 6 a.m., man. And again, like sometimes I have 2-hour guard duties, and it's at nighttime, you know, and so it really got on my nerves. It's so disrespectful. And so finally, like, I said something. I was like, hey, man, if y'all are gonna talk, you know, if y'all want to talk this early, take it outside. You know what I mean? Like, I was very upset, you know, to even have to do this, right? It's so common sense, you know, these grown men acting like children. And so anyway, you know, Jay's like, oh, go back to sleep mode. Like, I've been trying to sleep for the past 30 minutes, man, but y'all are over there so loud, laughing and giggling before it's even lights on that no one can sleep. Everyone's already awake except Zeb, right? Because Zeb snores like fucking freight train, you know, seriously. And so, you know, that's why he's asleep, because literally he can't hear you through his own snores. But everyone else, I didn't say all that, but I'm just like, I've been trying to sleep, man, but y'all are being too loud. And so Kenny was like, okay, lad, we'll quiet down some, boat, okay? And I'm like, thank you, right? And I turn my back, and you know, that you just, right, you just hear them. They're just sitting there, they're still just giggling and tittling like little school children. And so finally, you know, I'm just like, God damn, man. So I just get up, right? I put all my stuff on, not all my stuff, I put my PT stuff on, and I go out. I go out in the morning before breakfast, and I go to run some laps, right? Do some PT, some running and stuff, because that's really, I would either email journalists about Ashley, do PT, study SOP manuals. That's pretty much all I would do whenever we weren't like out on missions, you know, or sleep, right? Or eat, right? And so I was out there, I was running around this track, this gravel track that runs around the soccer field that's behind the dormitories. And so I was the only one out there, and I was out there for however many, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I was, you know, sweated up by that time. And then I see Kenny, he comes out, he's by himself, and he's walking down the sidewalk to the bench, right? There's two benches under a tree, right? And so he's at the bench. He's like, hey, Bo, like, come here, mate, you know. And so, you know, I'm like, okay, I jog over, and I'm not feeling as stressed now because the exercise and the fresh air. There's birds chirping. It's really beautiful by this point. It's in May. All the trees are full with leaves. There's so many sparrow birds in these big groups that are just chirping and flying all around. The flowers are blooming everywhere. It's so pretty. It's so green. The sky is so blue. It's just really lovely, and it's warm. It's really nice. It's a very beautiful time. And so, you know, Kenny calls me over, and I go over to him, and he's like, what's your problem, mate? Like, what, you know? And I'm like, what, man? I'm like, are you kidding me? And so I start going through this litany of issues, right? With Jay, with his leadership since Kiev, right? Since with all the way back to Taylor, the prostitutes, the drinking, the drunk on duty, the rambunctious, disrespectful behavior, fights in the cafeteria, leaving liquor bottles everywhere, being so disrespectful, you know, like all this stuff, fuck the booby traps, you know, like so many things, you know, that I'm just listing off to this guy. And he's like, yeah, mate, well, you know, if that's the way you feel about it, mate, maybe you should find a new squad. And I'm just like, maybe we should find a new squad leader, you know. And he's like, no, mate, Jay's squad leader, mate. It's just how, you know, it's the way it is, you know, it's how it is. And I'm like, that's, you know, it's not going to be that way. That's not how it has to be, you know. Just because it's the military, that's what he would always say, like, it's the military, mate. That's just the way it is. And I'm like, no, man. Like, again, this guy is 8 years, however, 20 years away from the military, 8 years bus driver, doesn't even understand drones, alcoholic, full-blown alcoholic, just came in, made himself into a squad leader basically because no one else wanted to vote him down, even though at the time I said, you know, but there's so many reasons why it just shouldn't be that way. But, you know, Kenny is just one of those really, I mean, again, you know, the guy literally believes the earth is flat. You know what I mean? Like, and now he's out here trying to tell me, this guy that believes that the earth is flat, that has a mouthful of meth teeth, that left his 2 daughters to come and fight over in Ukraine. Like, what are you doing? You know? I'm literally only here for Ashley. Everyone knew that. I told, you know, I'm literally only here for Ashley. I'm sitting down on the couch every day. They see me. They knew who I'm sending emails about. They've all heard the story. They know why I am there. Okay, why are you here? Okay, you have 2 daughters. They're both young. They're both back home, and their daddy just up and left them to go try and play soldier in Ukraine because his life's falling apart because he's some kind of meth addict that believes the world is flat. Now he's trying to lecture me on keeping some other alcoholic in charge of us when clearly he shouldn't be in charge of himself. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous, man. It's just really ridiculous that these people, and they think they're so right. You know, like King Charles X, you know, sent by God, cannot commit wrong. You know what I mean? But hey, do your history lesson. See what happened to King Charles X, right? All the way up to the end. So, you know, that's what happened. Kenny came out there and we had this conversation where he was basically telling me that Jay was going to stay the squad leader, and that was it. And so, you know, I'm just like, well, you know, I forget exactly what I said, but I said, oh, well, I guess we'll see, you know, time will tell, and turned and went back to my exercise. And so, you know, we kept on like that until there was a few days. It was a few days before we were going out on another mission, and this was going to be a big mission. It was actually going to be with our squad and Sparta group. It was going to be this whole big thing, and I'll get into it. And we were going to be going out, and it was like 2 days before, I don't know, the morning, same thing, right? It's like 5:30 in the morning, 5:15, and there's Jay, right? Drunk off his ass again. Drank a whole bottle of tequila in his bed, right? And now he's up there being loud, standing up, singing, crooning, just so disrespectful, man. Just doesn't give a shit about anyone. Total tyrant. As soon as he gets power, he's just elevated to the top as he can go. Mort omnibus tyrannus. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so I'm sitting there and I'm laying and I'm listening, and I'm getting so angry and so upset. And, you know, Kenny's starting to join with him. And then, you know, I'm hearing him, and he's getting ready to go on guard duty. So he's drunk off his ass, and he's got his loaded rifle, his automatic rifle. And, you know, he's going out on guard duty to be in charge of watching over the base, of, like, protecting the, you know, making sure everything is what it was, right? After he down in this bottle of tequila and waking me up again. You know what I mean? And so when he left and Kenny left, then I just got up. I got out of my backpack, and because we had beds, but we always slept in backpacks, right? Our backpacks were where we took with us wherever we went, and even on the orphanage, a lot of people did sleep in the beds. I didn't. I didn't sleep in the orphans' beds. I always slept on top of the mattress inside of my sleeping bag. I just how, you know, what I did. Other people, you know, they slept inside the covers. I didn't, but whatever. But what happened was I got up and I started to get dressed, and I was so heated. I was so done. I was ready to fight. You know, because there was another time that Kenny and I had almost I challenged Kenny to a fight, because Hogan has been listening to some rap music, some new age rap music, which I thought was terrible, and then I recommended like some Tupac song, probably Troubles of '96, or maybe some Outkast, something like old, and then Kenny came in and said, you know, basically called me a wigger, right? And then when I told him that was really offensive, he said, you know, he looked at me like, I meant it to be, mate, you know? And so then I lost my cool basically, and I challenged him. You know, I got really heated, and I told him, you know, we could go down to the showers right now, like lead the way. But he didn't, you know, he didn't want any. And so once I was in that's exactly the mood I was in though. I was just like, let's go to the showers. And so I got up, I put my boots on, my trousers, and one of my legionary shirts, and that was it. And I walked to the front of the room and I flipped the lights on. And everyone that was still there. So Zeb and JT, they had already woken up. They were like in the bathrooms or whatever, you know, because they wake up early, and again, because of Jay being so obnoxious and loud. But everyone else was still there, including Dom. And so I flipped the lights on, and I walked over to Jay's bed where this empty bottle of tequila was on the floor, and I picked it up, and I just started this like impromptu oration that was just led by anger and disgust. And I basically just told him, man, I was like, this shit's not happening anymore, man. Like, you know, it's embarrassing that this has even been able to happen like this. I looked over to Matt. I looked to Mitch, who was basically a fire team leader, but not really. But Matt, he was, you know. I'm looking at them, and I'm like, you know, it's outrageous that no one has put a stop to this already. Again, like, we're in a fucking orphanage, man, not a frat house. And, you know, going through all these litany of issues with Jay, right? Having this bottle of liquor, and I said, this is your leader? You know what I mean? And I told him, I said, as soon as breakfast is over this morning, I'm going to go to Vitaly, and I'm going to report to Vitaly that Jay should not be our squad leader anymore. And I said, if anyone has a problem with that, we can handle that shit right now. We can walk down to the showers. And I looked around the room, including at Dom, and Dom was looking back at me like a tiger, right? Like, just emotionless, just like a tiger, you know? Because if Dom wanted to, yeah, Dom could have got up and he could have Dom could have killed me, no problem, you know? But Dom was my battle buddy, see what I'm saying? Dom and I, we've been roommates since we came. Dom and I were cool, even though, again, we had specific disagreements on a deep level. He and I, we were cool. So he just laid there and looked at me. He knew I wasn't talking to him. You know what I mean? He knew I wasn't talking to him. Just like Rich knew I wasn't talking to him. Bless him. You know, but the other ones, you know, I'm like, what's up, man? Like, anyone, you know, like, I woke up ready to fight, so let me know. Looked around, no one took the bait, you know, because they all knew, you know. It was just sad that it had to come to this, right? And so then with the bottle, I threw the bottle down on the wooden floor, clank, clank, and then I said some shit, I forgot what I said, and then I stomped out, and I went down, and I went out directly to find Jay, because I was going to tell Jay right to his face exactly what I was going to do. And so that's what I did. I went right downstairs. Right after I finished that oration, I walked out. I knew I flipped the lights off, right? Like, so they go back to sleep if they want it. And then I walked right downstairs, and I walked outside, and there's Kenny sitting right out there in the open, chain smoking some cigarettes, you know he's supposed to be under the trees, sitting there right in the open, doesn't give a fuck, you know. And there is Jay, squad leader, leaned up against the wall, okay? It's broad daylight now, leaned against the wall, you know, clearly like, you know. And the worst part was, his rifle was nowhere to be found. This guy that's on guard duty, like, his rifle was nowhere to be found. And so anyway, as soon as I walked out of the double doors, I saw him. I saw over by the wall, and I just started walking towards him, right? Kenny was to the left. I looked at Kenny like just with a perfunctory look, and then I just kept going right to Jay, and I was like, hey, Jay, you know. And Jay's trying to, you know, look over at me, you know, see who it is through his drunken stupor. And I just walked up to him, and I confronted him head on. I was like, hey, Jay, you know, I just wanted to tell you right to your face that as soon as breakfast is over, I'm going to go straight to Vitaly and report your sorry ass. And he's like, for what, buddy? And I'm like, again, man, I just start laying into him, you know, basically calling him an alcoholic drunk piece of shit that's out here and doesn't even have his rifle and is drunk on guard duty. And he's like trying to actually tell me that he's not drunk. And then I tell him, man, I'm like, man, you lying ass piece of shit. You know, you're sitting there swaying on your feet. You know, and he told me, he's like, watch how you talk to me, buddy. So then I stood back, man. I got to a fight stance. And I was like, Jay, like, again, I was being very loud. I was being very aggressive, because when I get into these passionate moments, it's like no matter how tall the tree grows, it always stays connected to its roots. And when I grew up like around a lot of black and Hispanic kids in Atlanta, and I got into a lot of fights. And so when I'm like in the moments before or during a fight, I speak really aggressively with like very heavy ebonics and like a very urban accent. And so I'm like very just like bitch ass motherfucker, you know, like, you know, just like telling them like we can go right now, like right now, you know what I mean? Just make a move, you know what I'm saying? But he didn't want none, just like Kenny didn't want none, you know? Dom was the only one that, seriously, Dom would have been able to take me. Maybe Mitch, you know, but, you know, and that's not me talking shit. I'm just, you know, I've been around these guys, I can evaluate them. Zeb's too old. In his prime, Zeb could have definitely taken me. Yeah, Zeb's a big dude. And maybe JT, actually. JT's big, you know? But JT wasn't in the room. Zeb wasn't in the room. Dom was, you know what I mean? And everyone else, you know? And it didn't matter. It didn't matter at the time anyway. Anyway, it's not the point. The point is, Jay didn't want any. And so, I told him, you know, that he's not going to be, that you're not my squad leader anymore. And hopefully by lunchtime, you're not going to be anyone's squad leader. And he was like, you do what you need to do, buddy. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I am going to do what I need to do. And I just wanted to tell you right to your face, okay? Because that's how I handle shit. And so, you know, then I turned on my heel, and I went off, and I got ready for breakfast. And while I was eating breakfast, friendly George, always down. They're always so friendly, the Ukrainians. Really, they're all friendly, even if they're in the middle of war. They're very friendly, great sense of humor, always smiling, really cool guys. And so I asked George, I was like, George, I would like to speak to Vitaly after breakfast. And George was like, okay, yeah, okay, come. And so after breakfast, you know, I went and I got, you know, myself, made sure I was looking sharp, and I went over to their room on the other wing up to where their sort of like command HQ was, and I knocked on the door, and like Andre answered, right? Andre's the intelligence officer, the smaller guy, and he, George, and Vitaly were in this room together, just like a room that we had, except way less beds, and it had desks with computers and things set up for intelligence and things like that. And so when I walked in, you know, Vitaly was sitting down at his desk doing paperwork. He was working, you know, and he sort of looked at me, you know, and he put his hands on his lap, and he's, you know, like, what's this about? You know, curious why I was there, right? You know, very out of the ordinary. I'd never done anything like this before. And so I proceeded, you know, just like I was in the Marine Corps, right, to go into parade rest. I looked straight ahead towards the wall and basically reported while I was there to report the squad leader Jay is unfit for further command. And then, you know, Vitaly, because he doesn't speak that good of English, right? He's like, you know, he looks over to George, right? Because George speaks good English. And then so George starts interpreting the English into the Ukrainian, right? And then so Vitaly, you know, he's like, you know, like, what? You know, like, explain. And so I go through, right? I'm not going to sit and do it, but I go through everything from outside Lviv, where he basically made himself squad leader, and I give him credit. I had no problems with him. I didn't think he was the best, but he did not show any reason why he shouldn't be squad leader, the entire reason, until after we had been at Kiev for a few days and he started to get alcohol, okay? But then once the alcohol started and the hookers started, and then everything was going downhill, and now with his like disappearing for hours on end, no one knew where he was at, drunk as fuck, leaving his rifle loaded places, you know, making fights in the mess hall in front of the Ukrainian women, being so, I mean, leaving bottles of liquor, being so messy, I mean, just really, you know, walking around in fuzzy slippers while we're out at the front, you know, like without his boots on, just like all these things. I didn't say that part, but in my head, you know, I wasn't that pedantic about it. It was mostly just unfit because of his drunkenness and his Slavinness, like his alcoholism, you know, he wasn't able to control himself. And so, I had to stop every few sentences and let this get conveyed, and then slowly over it, you know, Vitaly was usually, again, very happy, cheerful. He started to become more somber and disappointed and stern, like disapproving. And by the time I finished, you know, then he asked me, he was like, is it just you, you know, or the others feel the same? And, you know, I felt pretty confident that the others would feel the same, except maybe, again, Kenny and Gary. And so I said, yes, sir, you know, same. And so then, right, came the moment where he was like, so who do you want to be squad leader, right? And so then they're looking at me, right, because they're expecting me to say me, like I'm coming in here to do some sort of palace coup. And so I said JT, like without missing a beat. And as soon as I said JT, they both, like, you know, they both softened, like they had favorable expressions, because JT is big, he's tall, he's fit, he's professional, he looks the part, he knows the part, he is the part. 27 years experience. He was just in before he came over, you know, really on top of a guy. Should have been in charge all along, right? Okay, if not him, then Matt. But, you know, as soon as I said that, then the battalion, George, and I didn't, Andre was doing something over at the side. I knew he was listening, but he wasn't, like, actively. He was looking over maps and stuff. But, you know, George and Vitaly both showed favorable, and they said that they were going to come and talk to our squad later that day, and they thanked me for coming. And so I didn't salute or anything. I just said, you know, thanks, and then I turned around. I did a nice about face, and then I left, because you don't salute. I never saluted once the whole time I was there. It's just, I don't know, it's just not what you do. In the Ukraine military, in the US military, sure, like he's a captain, you're enlisted, you salute. I did say sir, right? But they never used rank either. They would always say just Vitaly. They wouldn't say like Captain Vitaly or Captain George, right? They would just say George or Vitaly. Even the Ukrainians, or, you know, so it was just a bit of differences. It wasn't like as uptight as the US military is about that sort of thing. And so anyway, I turned around and I left, right? So this has been a busy morning, because it's like I woke up, I finally decided this is the day. I made this oration in front of the squad, then I went down, I confronted Jay, then I went to the actual commander of our garrison and reported this, which is a big deal, okay, in the military. And then right after that, like right after I left there, then I immediately went to go find JT, because I still hadn't even spoke to him yet. So this is like a coup d'etat, right? This is like me, you know, right Kenny out there by the track saying, it's the way it is, mate. It's not going to change, mate. Jay's it, mate. Yeah, okay. So anyway, I went and immediately found JT. I went back into the squad, into our room, right? Bunch of people looking somber, looking droll, you know, not wanting to make eye contact. I don't give a fuck. I'm defiant. You know what I mean? Like, like, what's up? And so he's not in there. So then I look in the bathrooms. I find him in the second bathroom. He's in there. He's bald, you know, like me. And so he's in there shaving, you know, which is a daily thing for us. And so I walked in and I was like, morning, JT, because now I'm feeling chipper, I'm feeling good, right? Because, you know, it's just a matter, like, things are going so far to plan. And he's like, you know, morning, Bode, or morning, Bodie. He would call me Bodie. Kenny would call me Bode. Morning, Bodie. And so I asked him, I'm like, JT, if the squad wanted you to be our squad leader, like, would you accept it? And he was like, you know, he stopped, thought about it. He's like, yeah, I guess if they wanted us to. And I was like, okay, well, good, because later today there's going to be a meeting and you're going to be asked just that. And so then, like, he stopped doing what he was doing, right? And he, like, put his razor down and he stopped and he looked at me and he's like, what are you talking about? And so then I started to tell him, and I was like, you know, because he wasn't in there that morning, like, yes, he was woken up by Jay again, right? But then he went and he was doing stuff. So he wasn't there when I woke up and I made my oration, and he didn't know about the confrontation with Jay, and he didn't know about me going and having that meeting with Vitali just now. So I basically filled him in on all that, reminded him of all the stuff, because unlike Vitali, like, he was there. He knew all the stuff from Kiev. He saw firsthand, even though at the time in Kiev when I gave him the opportunity to be squad leader and he turned it down because he said he still supported Jay, okay, he was still there. He still saw these things, and by now he, just like me, had given up on Jay and knew that Jay was beyond, you know, he wasn't fit for command. And so, you know, JT, he basically, yeah, he agreed with what I was saying, and I told him that, you know, I looked at him as a man, and I said, out of everyone in our squad, JT, there was no one here that I have more confidence in to lead us into battle than you. I really hope, you know, basically, that you're going to be the guy to take this responsibility. And, you know, he was very appreciative of that and took it very well and seemed to be in agreement. And before we finished this conversation, right, then the door opens up, and then it's Kenny, and Kenny's in there. He's like, oh, who you are, lads? You know, hey, lads, let you know, Jay wants to have a meeting in the studio, you know, like right now for a minute, you know, like, come along. And so I'm like, sure, you know, because I'm finished, right? I said what I had to say. JT, he's still got some shaving cream on his head. He's still got this razor. He's like, let me, you know, I'll be there in a few minutes. I just got to finish this up. And Jay's like, ready, you know, sure, out, good shout, good shout. And so Kenny and I, we leave out of the bathroom together, leave JT behind. We walk into the dance studio where Jay has already got the rest of the squad assembled, right? And Jay is sitting down in the middle of the room. I think because if he was standing, he'd be swaying on his feet still, right? But, you know, whatever. So he's sitting there, and he's looking at us as we all come in, Kenny and I, and then we wait another minute or two, and then JT comes in and apologizes, and so it's the whole squad, right? And so then Jay starts to address us, and he's like, right, I just wanted to address some of the recent concerns that some people may have had with my leadership. And he goes into this long circumlocution, which, if you're not aware, basically means a diatribe, like just a lot of hot air. Okay, talking about nothing, okay, beating around bushes, not apologizing or taking ownership for anything, and then truly gets to the end and says, you know, okay, well, I'm going to go off into town to buy more booze. And while I'm off into town, you all can stay here. You all can talk to Matt and Kenny, who are our fire team leaders. When I get back, if there's anything that should be relayed to me, the fire team leaders will relay it to me. Roger that. Good day. Holly, hallelujah. Right? Thinks everything's good to go, gets up and waddles himself out the door. And so as soon as he leaves, I get up behind him and I shut the door, right? Because we're still all in this dance studio. And JT, God love him, by this point, you know, he immediately chimes in. He's like, I don't know about y'all. He didn't say y'all, he's Canadian. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't actually hear Jay take ownership or apologize for a single thing that entire speech. Right? And then that was all I needed. Like, I immediately chimed in and I was like, yeah, you know, back in JT full to the hilt. Like, he's not, you know, and, you know, basically, like, yeah, agree with that, you know, try to push that. And then Kenny, trying to play the advocate for Jay, was like, okay, mate, okay, guys, like, Jay may have made some mistakes since he's become our squad leader, but, you know, he's our squad leader and that's the way it is. And then I came in, right? So this is the, like, getting to the coup d'etat moments. Not, you know, there's a couple left. And so then I come in and I'm like, yeah, but I had a meeting with Vitali this morning, and Vitali said that we should have a vote on it, right? So that completely undercut Kenny, right? Because Vitali's in charge of the whole command, the whole base, including Jay. And so if Vitali said that that we should take a vote on, you know, whether or not Jay should be our squad leader, then that basically leaves Kenny without any other options, even though Vitali never said that, okay? I just completely made that up, whole cloth, out of thin air, at the moment, because we were too far gone. We were too close. I was too close to getting this man who was going to get many people killed with his fuck the booby traps mentality, okay, and getting him replaced with the consummate professional warrior JT. And so I don't feel bad or guilty about making that lie up at all, not a bit, but that's what I did. And so once I did that, and Kenny, he was like, you know, taking act, and then I continued the floor, and I was like, basically cheerleading for JT. And then JT chimed in. He was like, I just want to make it clear right now, I didn't know anything about this until just before. Bodie hasn't said anything to me, and I'm like, yes, JT didn't know anything about it. I did this, you know, and then Vitaly said this, and that's just what happened. And so, you know, we're in there, and Kenny is still, he's trying desperately to just like to avoid what's coming, right? The thing that he told me wasn't going to happen. But I just keep ramming it through. I just keep like, you know, sorry, Kenny, but Vitaly, you know, Vitaly's in command. If Vitaly says that we have a vote, then we have a vote. So all those in favor, right? I'm just pushing past them, all those in favor. But he comes in again. He's like, hold on, right? Like, right? He's like, if that's the way y'all are gonna do it, you know, fine. But I'm not gonna take a vote. I don't think it's right if the fire team leaders take a vote, right? So then he's like looking over to Matt, and he's pressuring Matt, and Matt, he's weak-kneed, right? Matt is a warrior, but he's like an ant, you know? You just set him to a mission and he'll do it, okay? But he follows orders. He's not a leader. Okay, he's a leader if you put him in that position, but he will not challenge authority. That's what I should say. Matt never challenges authority. Okay, great leader, but never challenges authority himself. And so anyway, you know, Matt then is sort of pushed into agreeing not to vote, okay? And so then JT comes in, he's like, okay, well, I think, you know, if that's the way, that I shouldn't have a vote either, right? And so they're trying to like derail it. It's sort of like going off the rails again. And so then I come back and I'm like, okay, fine. Everyone else, I'm just like, read it back real quick. Everyone else who thinks that Jay should not be our squad leader and that JT should be our squad leader, raise your hand, right? Boom, I raise my hand up. And as I rose my hand up, then Zeb, Dom, Rich, right, Nibs, they rose their hand up. And then as Hogan and Mitch were looking, and they saw that they weren't going to be the only ones, and they rose their hands up. And Gary, who was his drinking buddy, was the last one, right? He was so tepid, but when he saw everyone else, he was the only one. And he knew as well as we did. He was just trying to be loyal, but when he saw everyone else was going, you know, he put his hand up too, so it was unanimous. Everyone voted that Jay should not be our squad leader anymore. And so right there in that moment, that was it. JT was now our squad leader. And Jay was out. He was no longer the squad leader. And Kenny was crushed. I stayed magnanimous in my victory, right? Didn't rub it in, didn't say anything. Tried to just, you know, hey, this is for the best. It's just, you know, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, inside I was like, ooh, bitch, you said, yeah, you remember outside when you came up and you said, what? Yeah, see, people try to tell you that you can't do things because they're too plebeian mindset. They're too much of a hamster around a wheel. They're too much of an ant mentality that they just fail. They cannot think outside the box or the orthodoxy to challenge any sort of authority. That's just the way it is, they say. That's just the way it is. Now, that's the way it is right now. That's what I say. You dig? But that's not the way it's got to be. And if it's not right, then that's not the way it's going to stay if I can do anything about it, which is why you see how much I have done for Ashley Westeisen. I have left medical school, taught myself to code, made dozens of websites, started a social media campaign that's already close to 1,000 for YouTube in less than 28 days, written novels that are being published by traditional publishers that are going to support her, gotten her over 100 news articles and reports and everything from Bangkok Post to Rolling Stone magazine. I'm not stopping until she goes on CNN, understand, okay? There's the way things are, and then there's the way things are going to be. I'm one of those people that you say it's the way things are, okay, but that's not the way it's gonna be. And so that's how it was with this, you know. We were in the room and JT became our squad leader and Kenny had to accept that, and then it was perfect. It was almost like movie perfect, right? Because, okay, so then JT accepted his position and he took the floor and then he gave this speech about how he was going to do this and that and he was going to be open to suggestions, which was something Jay wasn't, right? Jay only wanted to hear Matt and Kenny. If it wasn't from Matt and Kenny, you weren't supposed to talk to him about stuff like that, right? He wanted to sit there and drink with you, but as soon as you wanted to try and talk to him about tactics or strategy or anything, oh, no, mate, you talk to your, you know? Whereas JT told us from the get-go, like, every man has a say, I'm listening to everyone, blah, blah, blah. So he went through this speech. It was a nice speech, went on for a little bit too long, but it was good because when he ended and we were all getting ready to leave, Then Vitaly, George, and Andre came in. Then they came in. And when they came in, this was the finish to the coup d'etat, right? This was the finish, right? And, you know, I mean, this is the first time I'm actually saying it. No one else knows, right? This is, you're getting primetime scoop, right? This is what happened. You know, I don't know. I mean, I imagine stuff like this happens in other squads. This is squad level politics, but this is really, you know, the first time this has come out, what happened in such detail. And so, yeah, as soon as they came in, I didn't wait. I jumped, I leapt, I pounced, as the media likes to say. I pounced, and I was like, we already took a vote. JT's our squad leader, right? I didn't even wait for anyone to say anything. I was just like, we took a vote. JT's our squad leader. And then Vitaly, what did he have to do? He didn't have to do anything. He just, huh? And he came in kind of serious faced because he thought he was going to have to, you know, do something serious. And then he was presented a gift horse, and so he just smiled and said, "Oh, that was easy," you know. And that was that. We had finished the coup d'etat. It was done. Jay was out of there. And so when he came back, right? This guy came back with his arms filled with trash, with grocery bags, some of them no doubt containing more alcohol. And then you saw, like, that as soon as he came back, like, he was looking, and then Matt and Kenny, they went up to meet him, and they basically took him aside. And then when he came back after they talked to him, like, it was very satisfying, you know, because, you know, you might say that I'm callous and cruel, but no, you know, when I see unjust, like, people that act in reprehensible manners that get their just desserts, you know, I don't feel bad about that at all. And you might say, you know, that you could say that I got my just desserts for something with Ashley, but I think that they're completely different, right? I mean, what was I doing? I was doing a victimless crime, importing non-addictive party drugs and selling them to consenting adults at rock-bottom prices and really high purity. And no one ever got sick or died or was robbed or hurt or injured, and no minor or child was ever involved in any way. And my students had the highest scores in the school's entire history, like, you know what I mean? Whereas this guy, he was given a position of authority over men in combat, something way back to even before the ancient Greeks is a highly prized and honored role, something that is coveted and prized among warriors. And how did this man treat this sacred responsibility? Like he was some kind of frat house leader, you know? Like some amateur way in over his head who just wanted to play it soldier. You know, so no, I didn't feel bad about seeing him come and looking abashed and defeated whatsoever. I felt very glad because I knew that he wasn't going to be the cause of my death any longer. I felt great relief and satisfaction that what I had been trying to tell people since Kiev was finally now a reality. Jay was no longer our squad leader. And so he tried to put a nice face on it, you know, oh, I didn't want to be squad leader anyway, oh, I'm happy to be one of the guys again, yada yada yada. But nah, he was done. He went later that day and told Vitaly he wanted to go back to Kiev, and by the next morning he was gone, even though he still owed me money for hookers that he never paid me for, because that's just the kind of guy he is, you know what I mean? But I think it was worth it, you know. I was happy to pay if that was the price of getting him out of there. He wasn't really adding anything at that point, you know. So, and now we had JT, and that was so great and so lovely, and I felt so calm, and I felt so just content that JT was now our leader, right before we were going to go on the biggest set of missions that we'd been on, with the biggest stakes, and that's going to be next week's episode. You know, the Rolling Stone type stuff, where the action starts going down, and he was going to be at our helm, leading us at this most important time. And so it was really a crucial save, I think. And yeah, that's what happened. That was the mutiny that worked, right? I don't feel bad about it at all. Yeah, you know, that's how people should act, you know. Don't just accept things. If something isn't right and you participate in it and you accept it, then you bear culpability and responsibility. I tried multiple times to get Jay replaced, okay, publicly. Both times I was, you know, put down. And so then I waited, and I bided my time until he made, you know, enemies out of everyone, or at least not friends. And then I went again, because if you don't succeed, try again. So we're coming for you, Ashley. We're going to get you on CNN, and we're going to get you out of there, and try to make sure that the life of freedom that you'll be able to enjoy will be as pleasant and filled with happiness as possible after these 4 years of miserable wretchedness in the Thai dungeons. And so if you have not subscribed, please do so. The only reason that I was in Ukraine, the only reason I'm making these videos, during the websites, the social media, the books, the activism, the advocacy, the networking, so much more, is for her. So please take a few moments. It costs nothing but a few clicks and help save a life. So free Ashley. Next week I will pick up with the big mission under JT, and how things were different, how different things were once we had a professional. Really, it wasn't quite night and day, but it was close. Okay, so we'll see you next week. Free Ashley. Slava Ukraine.